If you can be on video, we appreciate that. Welcome to your Friday morning. It's Friday. It's cold out here in Utah. We're 23 last night in Vernal. I'm not sure how cold you guys got, but Atlanta is rubbing it in on us, saying that it's just a beautiful day out there. And I think that Texas is probably nice. I don't know, but it's probably beautiful there. But the rest of us are jealous now because winter has come. It is here. So, all right, let's see. Who should I pick on today? I think Carla read the deal last week. I can't remember. Anybody want to volunteer for the um, lovely culture piece? It's short and sweet.
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you, Tara.
Okay. Trustworthy. We are worthy of trust. We are competent and reliable. We do what we say we'll do. We make and keep our commitments.
Yeah. The fact that it says we are worthy of trust really means a lot. It's not just that we're trustworthy, but we're worthy of trust. We have to develop that. And one of the things as we talk about this, what does competent mean in regards to this culture piece? What does competent mean to you guys? So when we say we're competent, what does that mean, Joe?
We know what we're talking about. And
Okay.
here's the interesting thing is that oftentimes it's like, okay, so we have to know everything. No, you don't have to know everything. But you should generally know enough about what is in your scope of responsibilities that you can speak very intelligently about it. And so that would equal competence to me, but doesn't mean you know everything. And you also know when you don't know something and you can admit it with confidence and say, you know what, I know exactly where to get that answer, but that may not be that, I didn't think about it in that way. And let me get back to you with an answer. And then if we're making that commitment, we're keeping that commitment by returning with that answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if we're competent, it's much easier to be more reliable because we kind of know what we're doing. And it's harder to be, reliable if you're out there doing things you don't know what you're doing. So it's great to, you guys, that's the wonderful thing is you are competent. That's why you're here. That's why we continue on with this training and so forth, because we do have that trust in you, and that we feel like that you're very competent and reliable to do the things you need to do. So okay, so I have a quick question for Ted. Ted, I wasn't sure he was going to be on. So Ted, are you wanting to take the reins for a bit before you have to leave, or are you going to be here full time?
Well, I'm here for maybe 20 minutes at the most, so I may just cause more damage than good, but I can do whatever you want for 20 minutes.
Well, and I was just going to start off with the video. I asked everybody to write down a few things that they learned, so I just wanted to have some good discussion on some of those items, and kind of take it from there. But if you wanted to lead off with anything about the video, you're welcome to, or we can just dig into the questions. So
yeah, let's start with the video. I watched it again last night, but it took me forever because I sat and stopped and took notes, which I hadn't done the previous few times. And any comments or thoughts anyone has on the video?
Jane?
One of the first part of the video I liked is when he said, when you allow the environment to control your psychology, you're not going to win, right? And I look at that in something that's looming on us right now in the staffing world as we're coming into our slow season, right? And I did finger quotes because why? Why does it have to be our slow season? Why does it have to be something that we follow with the rest of the industry that they say it's going to be? And it's not necessarily the numbers, right? Are we just not focusing on the type of clients that are not in their slow season?
Yeah, he talked about the the chokehold on any business is the psychology of people, and particularly the psychology of the leadership. And then he said that's a skill set and it's also on the skill set of the team, which we just talked about being competent and different things. But I think that's interesting. And 20% skills. So it is important that we have the skills, but really our mindset and our way of thinking about what we're doing. And I tend to believe that I think that is kind of 80% of the battle. I don't know who mine doesn't number.
Oh, I've got
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
Ivan will be next.
Okay.
There was two things that kind of stuck in my he was talking about running two businesses, operating and becoming. I thought that was super interesting. And when he was talking about how losers react and leaders anticipate of what's you know going to happen or what's coming in the future. Those are the two biggest things that kind of grabbed my attention from that.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is The E-Myth, and it's kind of just now called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. But he talks about an entrepreneurial seizure that you have a skill set or an art that you do. You're a mechanic, you're a dentist, you're a hairdresser, and you're like, I'm really good at this. I should go into business and do it for myself. So you have that entrepreneurial seizure, but you really don't ever become a business person. You don't really understand the art of business. You just keep doing hair or lawns or painting or whatever it is that you do. And that's kind of that you're in the business and you never step back and work on the business. And this was a different paradigm that still was kind of in versus on, but it's sort of in the, but there's two types of on. There's on. So I almost think there's four businesses. You work in and on today's business, and then you work in and on tomorrow's business. And that tomorrow's business was kind of a new paradigm for me to realize you've got to make the business succeed today and harvest your crops and make stuff happen that's happening. And we need to prepare for the future to move where, in a hockey analogy, where the puck's going. Where is the industry going, and where are our clients going, and what changes are happening, and are we going to be there and be prepared to take advantage of that? So I love that one. Thank you. Who is next, Carrie? I don't have a.
We've got Tara.
I focused on servant leadership, establishing goals that also contribute to the better good. And that stood out to me. Also, hiring other leaders, that no matter what your position is, you can be a leader and lead. And we can all be together and have attributes that contribute towards leading and influencing others and be successful.
Awesome. Thank you. I agree. And that's another real truism that you hear a lot, that people say, an A leader will hire other A or A plus leaders, but B leaders hire C's, and C's hire D's, and D's. So that's one indication of, I think, the quality of a leadership is the people that they surround themselves with. If you're trying to evaluate someone on your team, you can look at who they hire. And I think that's somewhat of an indication. So thank you. Shantae?
Yeah, along those lines, one of the points that I found helpful was just to know who you are and to know who you need to have around you. It's one of the things he said. What are you lacking and who do you need in order to make you better? And then the other point I wrote down was to be a leader, you need to know what your people desire and what they fear. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, life is found in the dance between what you desire most and what you fear most. And if I want to influence you, I need to know those about you, which he called your state and your blueprint. I thought that was a nice summary of that. But I think about that tension, that it is a balance and a dance between what we fear and what we want. And the bad news, I guess, or good news, is we will respond and do things much strong. Fear is a stronger pull than desire. And so just know that about yourself and about other people, that they will do more to alleviate fear or to eliminate fear or to, avoid fear, whatever they're afraid of, than they will to get what they want.
I think it helps too. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, I think it helps too to again, what we're doing with the Strengths Finder, to know your people, and to have those kinds of discussions. And when we have Q12 discussions with our people, it'll help us understand not only the strengths, but what are their fears, what is it that they would like to be able to do, but they're afraid, or that sort of thing. And I think it's probably hard for people. Like if I ask most of you what you're afraid of, you're probably, not going to give me the best answer, but unless we're really, really got a good relationship. So having that relationship where somebody can say, you know what, I just am so afraid of doing this and stepping out there, so that a leader can step in and help that person. But if we don't have that kind of relationship where we can understand the fears, we're not going to be able to help. So
Thank you, Techie.
Yeah, part of that is learning to lead yourself and changing your emotional state by moving. He said he gives himself 90 seconds to stress out about something and then moving around to change it immediately after that and having more of a positive mental state.
Yeah, I love that. Does someone have a comment?
I could jump in on the comment on that one, because that was what partly what mine was about, which is it's way easier to change your mental state through your physiology than it is through your thinking. And that one was just such an interesting thing to be thinking about, which, body posturing, he says I guess they did that very interesting research where it had an increase of testosterone. I don't know if that's true for women, but I just found it very interesting that you can change your chemical by posture, and that will also is way easier to change your posture change than it is to change your thinking and your breathing over changing your thinking. I just found that exceptionally powerful.
That's kind of classic Tony Robbins stuff there. That's probably the core of what he does, is that piece. And it's, your body, I believe, and there's probably, I don't know that he says this, but there's just a dozen other books that I've read that all say, and I believe, that our body is sort of a repository of our mind, that we spend most of our time sort of on autopilot because it's more efficient. It'd be just too hard to wake up today and say, do I even eat? Do I like to eat? Should I brush my teeth today? I wonder if I'm going to go to the bathroom today. I wonder if I'm going to shower. You know what I mean? We operate on autopilot, and our body kind of becomes a big repository for our mind. Well, that can be really positive if you're heading in a virtuous cycle, and it can be really negative if you get caught in a downward spiral. And so his thing, if you need different results, you got to take different actions. But actions come from our psychology and our physiology, and our psychology comes from our physiology, which is our body. And the way to change that is to change your state. To change your state is to change your body. You got to move. And we talked about Tony Robbins, that little thing from the podcast I sent out on priming. That's why priming is important. That's why a lot of the ways you set your day up is important. But literally, he, in the Tony Robbins method, you would say, all right, you're depressed. What is a depressed person? How's their posture? Where's their head? How's their breathing? What's their voice like and their tonality? What kind of words do they say? We would all say that, and we would all say the exact same thing. We know what it's like. What does someone that's off the roof, excited and energized, what are they like? Okay, so you just start to move your body. It's like, all right, sit up straight, pull your shoulders back, breathe deeply, give yourself a big huzzah, and and it sounds really corny, but it's actually really true. And that's why, this top of the top, the best tennis players, the best basketball players, the best everybody that's at the top of their game, but it hits walls sometimes, they bring him in and that's sort of that's his, I would say, the key of his, or one of his cornerstone things. So thank you for that. One other thing I thought was interesting is, I believe that the key to business and the key to engaging employees, and even just how to run a successful business, I'd start with the why, which we would call our culture, which is what's our purpose. And he said, let me see I'm going to take a tangent here real quick. What did he say about culture? But basically the culture is the responsibility of the leader. I can't see it in my notes, but that's really I would say, our why. And so we understand our purpose, we understand our vision, we understand, who we are, what we're trying to be, and what we're trying to do. Then I would say it's a who question. You get the right people there, and you get people that are bought into that, because it's a lot easier to hire alignment and people that are naturally wired that way than to try to convert and train people. And then at that point, we would work on strategy and figure that out. And, and we've talked also about the 3 keys to any kind of progression is, who am I? Where am I trying to go and get to? And then what's the plan to get there? But then he had these 3 beliefs that I thought was interesting, if you kind of meld into this model I'm saying, which is, what's our why? Where are who's? What's our what? And then part of that is the 3-part journey is, who am I? Where am I going? What am I trying to do to get there? He also had those 3 beliefs when he talked about the gold thing I thought was interesting, which is, I believe that there is treasure out there, that there is opportunity in staffing, and that doing light industrial staffing or specialized staffing or headhunting or gig work or whatever that we want to do, HR consulting, we believe that there's treasure out there and there's opportunity to be found. We believe that there's opportunity in Dallas, Fort Worth. We believe that there's opportunity in Southern Atlanta and on the Wasatch Front in Utah. And so we believe that. Number 2, we believe that we can find it, that we are the right team and the right company. We have the right tools and processes and things that we can go capture that treasure. We can go win market share. We can go get customers. We can keep customers. We can beat competitors in a head-to-head situation. We believe that. And that's important. Now, maybe you're like, I don't know if I believe that, but I think it's important that we figure out and we do believe that. And then number 3, we believe it's worth it, that if we do that and we win, that it will be worth it, both worth it for the company, worth it for the team and your team members, worth it for you, that you say, I think there's a win in there for me. I want that. And so I thought that 3-part thing was interesting, especially if you meld it into that other framework of why, who, what, and then the 3 parts of who am I, where am I going, what's my destiny, or what's our potential, and then what's our plan to get there. All right, any more comments on any of this?
I have one other. I was going to bring this up, and I think it was an interesting subject that he kind of walked through, especially for our industry that we're in. And I think it's really important for us to keep our eye on the ball. But he talked a lot about unskilled workers are in trouble. That in this day and age, it's becoming more valuable. That's really important. 40% of the jobs will be lost to tech. And when we think about like a company like Keurig, for example, who was using 10 lines, I don't know, they had 10 people on each line that we used to have out there or more, and it's all automated. So tech has taken over. And so we have to look at, I think it's important for us to look at this, and maybe we can chat about this. Like what's our goal? If unskilled workers are going to be in trouble in our future, where does that put us? What things do we need to be looking at? How can we maintain or sustain, in that area? His statement was, participate in your own rescue. Make sure that we, again, are doing the right things, keeping ahead of the market rather than again, reacting to it. We should be anticipating these things. So anyway, I just thought it would be maybe good to chat for a second. Like, did anybody else catch that one? You know, our industry is highly vulnerable to that, and you know, let's make sure that we, you know, are watching really closely.
Yeah, and the key for that as an individual or as a company is to retool yourself. We're always focused on training. We self-educate. We seek niches, and then we seek mastery within those niches. Those were some of his solutions.
Yeah, Kanai, which if you don't, I'm sure Shantae, do you know what Kanai is? CANI.
Improvement.
Yeah, constant, never-ending improvement.
Kaizen was a Japanese word that was big in the 80s during their industrial dominance, but it same kind of thing. It's just you always got to get better. We got to be better tomorrow than we are today.
Also thought, you know, where do we find good ideas? You had a great discussion on that, and you know, where do we get good ideas? You know, how do we go about doing that?
And it's hard to say the word steal them. So I think modeling is a more favorable word that he says, you know, and that's true, Steve. Everything is benchmarked or modeled against someone else. So we need to be looking at other competitors, seeing what but on the other hand, we need to be a leader and not just copying people. So it's almost better to look at other industries or look at nature, you know. I mean, that's where Velcro came from, is they looked at the little things that latch onto your clothes when you walk through the bushes, or they, you know, I mean, there's just so many examples that we can model. So we always need to be modeling and working on innovation and questions and comparing and stealing at times and copying and modeling. But I mean, another Tony Robbins thing is success leaves clues. And so we need to be looking at successful things. And again, a lot of times in other industries, I'm not just saying let's just copy our competitors. Let's outthink them. Let's innovate them, or let's take what they have and take it to the next level. But I think modeling is, there's just a whole bunch of potential in there with innovation.
And along with that too, I think understanding what kind of business we're in. So, you know, are we? Because I love the Apple analogy that he used. That if Apple would have stuck with computers, they wouldn't be the company they are today. So they redefined things, which is kind of goes back to your statement, Ted. Wherever you got it, I can't remember if that was Jessica that kind of came from, but we're the people. You know, so who are we? You know, having that discussion about who we really are, not just, hey, we're in the staffing industry. Apple's in the computer industry, and thank heavens they changed that to something else and really realized that they weren't in the computer business, but in giving people, you know, things that they enjoy and want to do. And I think that's, you know, we really need to look at that too and say, what business are we really in? Or what business do we really want to be in? Is it just going to be the staffing industry? Or are we the people? And what does that mean to us?
Yeah, I love that. I gotta go, but one last quick thing before I leave is, you know, one of our 5 parts of our mission that probably everybody's got memorized by now, is innovation. And so we give back, we disrupt labor services, we build people, we align and serve clients, and then we innovate. But yet we don't ever talk about how we innovate. So what do we do to be an innovative company? What do we do to innovate? And I thought he put a really nice roadmap out. And so that's what I'll just end with before I go, is he talked about, you know, to have innovation, you got to ask new questions. And that's something we do talk about here, that if you're not getting results you want, you got to ask better questions. You got to ask different questions. And we do need to do more of that. We need to ask more questions because the answer is always in the questions. So we've got to ask more questions. But you've also got to get new voices and new perspectives. you really want a diverse team. We don't want a bunch of Teds that are, because we don't need that. We've already got what I have. We don't need a bunch of Ashleys. We've got an Ashley, but we need an Ashley and a Ted and a Tara and an Ivan and a Shantae and a Techie. We need a diversity of voices, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not necessarily of the opinion to say, well, we're going to fire someone from our team and bring someone in every year, but we do need to find a way to have fresh perspectives and fresh voices. I thought that was great. We need to do new experiments, and we need to always be testing. And, but again, I'll use a Jim Collins thing. We want to fire bullets to test, and then we can fire the cannonballs when we've really done it. But I think too often we test with the ship. We sort of like, hey, I'm burning the bridges, we're going all in. But really what we should do is do more methodical experiments, make sure we have stuff really figured out and dialed in, and then let's roll it out more. And I think that's the thing we could learn from. But we should always be testing and experimenting and trying and doing things. New modeling, always again out looking at other things and trying to apply that to us. So I think we need to be explorers. We need to be kind of curious and looking in life. So I think if we want to be innovators, we need to do those type of things. And then remember, like you said, all failures are just speed bumps on the way to success, and that truly success almost always is on the far side of failure. And so you have to be, if you're a salesperson and you don't like rejection or failure, good luck. It's all a numbers game. We have to just, are you the one? Nope. Are you the one? Nope. Okay, thank you. Are you the one? Nope. Are you the one? Are you the one? Yeah. Oh, okay. And that's, I think, to me, I would say, what's the key DNA of it? There's a few things the salesperson, but one of them is they're okay with the rejection, because you get rejected over and over and over and over and over and over again. A lot of us are like, oh, that's horrible. Well, these guys don't mind it, or some of them even like it because it's the thrill of the hunt. But we've got to be prepared for failure and for rejection, and because stuff won't always work, but we've got to be persistent. That's why it's important to know what's our why. That we go back to that when we get stuck. Who are who's, and what's our what, and we understand our destiny and potential. We do think it's worth it. We do think there's a treasure out there. We do think we can get it, and we do think it's worth it. So let's up our innovation game this next year.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. I hope you found that worthwhile. I was still enthralled with it even the 5th time I watched it last night. So I thought there was some good stuff in there.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to jump out and leave it to Carrie and you guys for the rest, but have a great weekend. See you, Ted. That was perfectly timed waving. I love it. So I want to carry on just a little bit more on our discussion here. I wanted to hear from Maria. Like, what were some of the things that jumped out to you, Maria, in the video? Anything that stood out to you?
Okay, so this is going to sound really crazy.
That's okay.
But I think most of you should know that, like, I'm sometimes not all the way there. But when he was talking about how, like, leaders are born leaders, like, anyone can be a leader. And that a leader is someone who, like, people follow them, right? Like, there's something about you that people want to follow. And then it got me thinking of, like, cults and how easy it is for, like, regular people to be brainwashed into joining these cults and, like, Charles Manson and stuff. And it just was like, okay, anyone can really be a leader. Like, I can sit here today and not have any leadership experience and just have one thought in mind, and then I can convince all of you guys on my beliefs, and all of you guys would just follow me, and that's what really stood out to me, like, people who follow other people don't really, like, stop and think and be like, okay, well, I have my own thoughts, like, and leaders don't listen to other people. It's just what they say is what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Belinda, what were you going to say?
No, I just, you make a very, very interesting point there, which is that leadership skills can be used for the good or for evil.
Mhm.
And if you think about Charles Manson, you think about Adolf Hitler, you think about we won't get political, but you know, a lot of people that have misled millions. Those are leadership skills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
because
good point.
because remember, I mentioned this a week or two ago with John C. Maxwell. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So anybody can be a leader, and it can be done for evil as well as it can be done for good. So we have to be careful about, you know, who we follow, and we need to be careful as a leader, you know, what we're saying, and make sure that it's a, you know, worthy purpose and cause. So that's good. Thank you, Maria. I think that's a good point. Not crazy, but because we know that it's happened in the world many times, and it's still happening today. And that's, you know, making sure that, because leadership is just an influence. He said it at the very beginning, you know, it's a skill of influence. That's what it is. And then one thing I thought was good along with that, though, and that is first influence yourself. Learn to influence yourself. You know, whatever it is, if you can do that, then you have a better chance of you know, working with other people. So very good. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to ask, hopefully you have, because there's Maria and then there's Mariah. Mariah, did you get anything out of the video that we thought was cool?
Yeah. Actually, to Maria's point, I actually listened to a podcast that's called Cults, and it's all about every episode is about a different cult, and it's really crazy to see how a lot of these people that run these would end up being like huge widespread groups and organizations and stuff. They actually start as like childhood leaders in like their local like communities and stuff like that. And then it's crazier to see people that leave these big organizations and tell about their story, talk about how they were just really invested in the person. A lot of it really has nothing to do with the beliefs or what they were preaching or selling. A lot of it has to do with being invested in the person and having so much trust in that leader that regardless of, you know, what they say, and that's why you see a lot of these groups that have like these prophets and prophecies that don't become fulfilled, these people still follow, and it's because they trust, and you know, they're trusting in the person. So I think that really spoke to me on Maria's point. And I also liked going back to desire and fear. We're actually in our trades book club at the ops team. We're reading a book called 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. And there's a whole section. It's a really good book, by the way, if anybody wants to read it.
Cool.
But there's a whole section that talks about the suffering point between knowing and doing. And I thought that it was kind of like fear and desire, basically. Like you create your own suffering because you have what you know you're supposed to do, but then you live in your own suffering by having all these reasons that you're not just going and doing it. And that was cool to kind of see Tony Robbins put it in a different wording. He called it fear and desire, but it was really the same, knowing and doing, and how that gap in between is like so vicious. It's such a vicious cycle, and it's so common. So I liked that. That was cool.
Well, yeah, I think that's good. You know, he told a story about the guy who watched the guy dad push his kid down the street who had handicaps, and you know, and there was this fear thing. So then he gets into I can't remember which studio it was. Was that you, Joe, that the story was about?
Yeah, I was the challenge kid on my bike, I guess. So.
Uh-huh.
No, just kidding. I just really loved how the dad went like this at the end, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I was that dad with my kids going, yeah, we got it finally. Sorry, I just enjoyed that story.
No, I think that's a good point. And so he learned that, and then when he got into this studio and made his first movie, and it was kind of a, you know, a flop, and somebody came up and said, "Are you afraid?" And he said, "Yeah, but it ain't gonna stop me." I thought that was amazing, you know. So what you're saying, Mariah, you know, if we go out and do things, we take the action, we step into the darkness, you know, 3 steps into the darkness, and we find the light. You know, so sometimes that, you know, fear can cripple you. It can take you out of your game. It can ruin you. if you allow it to. And when we can face fear and say, yeah, I'm afraid, but it's still not going to stop me from doing what I'm going to do. And I don't think that I have to, quit just because I'm afraid of something.
There's actually another really good book if you guys want to read it. It's called Big Magic, and it's all about like unleashing your creativity and stuff. And she has a chapter where she actually talks about taking a road trip with fear and how you have to allow fear to be in the car with you. And her book's based on creativity. So it's taking a road trip with creativity and fear, but really it's anything. You have to allow creative fear to be in the car with you, but you cannot let fear drive and choose the route and choose where you stop. And you have to allow it to sit in the back seat. But she puts it in the analogy as like, but it's pumping gas in the car. That's what's driving you, but it's not choosing your route.
Yeah. And it's just interesting, and you guys can think about things, in your past. I've been doing sales for about 40 some odd years, 45 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I remember quite, clearly, how many times I used to go out and make sales calls and sit in the car and go, okay, just get out of the car, Carrie. All you got to do is just get out of the car. Just get out of the car. I've driven around the block and just like, okay, Carrie, all you got to do is just park the car. Just got to park the car. Just all you have to do is just walk in the door. So over the years, now I didn't say that I love it, but I've learned to do it so much that doesn't even come into my mind anymore. So I faced that fear many years ago, and now I can walk into any place. I can pull in. I can say, let's go out and make a call. Let's go do this. And with some of you, I've done that. With some of you, Techie, I've taken out on many calls before he and I ever worked for this company. And it's just part of my nature now. I don't have the fear. It still may not be my favorite thing to do, but I know how to do it and do it well because I've overcome the fear of doing it. So a lot of you may have similar experiences where you faced your fear. You looked it right in the eyes and said, yeah, I'm afraid, just like I was. I'm afraid to get out of the car. I'm afraid somebody is going to reject me. And I've learned to realize that, that wasn't that big of a deal. But if you haven't gone out on sales calls, you don't know how much fear that can put into you. Those of you who have, it's one of those challenges. But if you've never done that before, and probably some of you are like, I never want to do it. But salespeople have to face that fear. There are a few that never had the fear in the beginning, but most salespeople do have that sales call reluctance, when they go out there. So that's good. Very good. Ashley Labram, did you get anything out of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think pretty much everything was hit on with everyone else except for where they talk about the this power posture and like how you come in to your presence. I never really noticed the state until he started talking about it. And I had a previous employer who told me like, hey, when you're on, there's no one better. When you're on your A game, there's no one better. But a lot of times, the feedback was I was operating at a B or C level. I just wasn't in, but you could tell the difference between when I was and when I wasn't. And when you go back and ponder on that, a lot of it has to do with the state that you come into the work environment in. And so that was really cool to see it kind of come full circle for me and understand that a lot of that has to do with the state that I'm entering in the workday, not the worker that I am, not the leader that I am, just what my state is. And the idea that you can tap into and continue to operate at an A level regularly is super, super appealing.
And you can change your state. You can change it.
Right.
I think that's really, really important. Belinda?
Yeah, that was probably the most impactful sort of wow, his right thing for me in that entire video was what he said is like, I don't have bad days. Yeah, I have bad moments, but I don't have bad days because I have trained myself. And I think that to me was so powerful, which is that, and ties into what Ashley's trying to say here, which is that we can control it if we train ourselves, and we know the brain is a muscle. And if you make a conscious effort to teach yourself to be in a positive mindset, to teach yourself to be in a good space or whatever for work, you'll operate from that space. And if you're not, you think differently, you react differently, your judgment is different, everything is different. I thought that was huge for me. So yeah,
So
good point.
yeah, so I think even like I think it's a good question for everybody to ask. What does that mean for you? So how do you get into a good state? How are you going to make that change when those things happen? Because they're going to happen, especially in this industry. You're going to have those challenges. So what do you do to make that change? I think that's an important question for yourself to ask and say, so now I understand that I can do it. How do I do it? And how am I going to make that shift when that happens to me? Because it will happen. Shantae?
Okay, I'll answer your question and then I'll say what I was going to say. But I think that's why it's so important for leaders when they go into meetings, into a review, into the office, to make sure that we're not bringing our day with us into that conversation or into that moment. Because another piece of the video that I paid attention to was when he said, leaders have the ability to change the state of the people that they're influencing. And that's really powerful. So you have to know your people. And if someone is in a glum state or they're down or something, you have to know them well enough to know, how do I get them out of that into a different state? Maybe it's humor. Maybe they just need a laugh. Maybe they need someone to just listen and empathize with them for a minute and then they're over it. Or, maybe you need to get their creative juices flowing in a certain way so that to pull them out of that funk or whatever that they're in. So I thought that was really powerful too.
Yeah, very. I like that. Belinda?
I know this sounds really, just repeat your question.
I was just asking, for us to ask ourselves when we get into these situations, what are the steps that we want to take? How are we going to get out of those things, So,
Right. So, people who have worked with me know I've said this over time, which is when you're at work, it's showtime, right, guys? Those of you who have worked with me, you've heard me say this already, and that's what this is, which is you need to be in a certain frame of mind, you need to be in a certain place, you need to be in a certain space when you're at work, if you're a leader, so that you can deliver and perform the way that you need to. And it was also very interesting for me that when he said, he was talking about this super duper rich guy that had, when the stock market had crashed or whatever in the 80s or the 90s or something, and this guy got his clients like 200% growth in the stock market, remember? And then something went wrong and he was all in a slump and everything, and he was looking at his posture. Remember that story where he was talking about that? And then he made a comment and he's like, 2 minutes of being in a power posture will change just your whole energy. And I was like, that's awesome. 2 minutes. So if we stand like what was it? The superwoman posture or something, whatever he called it.
Yeah.
Like this type of a thing. And I was like, that's so amazing. Our minds are so powerful and our bodies are so powerful. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Shane, you're standing up, aren't you? Can you give us the power posture? Hands on your hip.
Hands on your hips. When I dip,
Yes.
you dip, we dip.
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
No, I think
I
that's
always stand. This is, Belinda's absolutely right. And I actually really did like that because I stand the majority of my day. As a matter of fact, even yesterday, I think it was the day before yesterday or yesterday, I had a meeting with Joe and I was sitting down and he even mentioned it. He's like, I don't see you sitting often. And I found that it took a little while and it was a little strange at first when I first had a standing desk, but I love it. I focus, I'm more involved. I can't multitask if my life depended on it. And when I stand, I just find that I'm much more focused on what I'm working on. I just feel better. My next is I'm going to get an under desk treadmill. So now I'll not just be standing. You guys will be watching me do my catwalk.
There you go. No, I think movement is really important. And he mentioned that, of course, we've talked about that. So yeah, very powerful. This kind of leads me into this last little piece. I sent out a couple of pictures to you to kind of take a look at. Let me just pull them up and okay. Everybody see those? Tell me when you can, somebody.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, you know, we talked about, we spent 25 weeks going through management training, and now we're going through leadership training. Isn't it the same?
No, nope.
So
there's threads that are similar, but they're definitely different in my opinion.
yeah, and that's why we're doing this. So leaders must be more important then, right? These are loaded questions. Look, we all have opportunities in different roles and positions, and management and leadership are not more important than one another. They are different roles, okay? So, and that's why I threw that question out there. Look, they're different roles. Do we need good managers in our company? Do we need good coaches? Like the NBA needs good coaches, or the NFL needs good coaches, or your favorite football team or college team? Yeah, we do. We need great coaches. We have to have that. We also have to have, you know, people in the front office that are able to do the leadership thing. So I just thought these were really good. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. It just has different roles. So a leadership role, you know, number one here, it says establishes direction, creates the vision, clarifies the big picture, sets strategies. Management produces order and consistency. Leadership produces change and movement. So management gets into the planning and budgeting, establishes agendas, sets timetables, allocates resources. So let me ask before we get into the rest of them, are there some people who are probably better at being a great manager and others that might be better at being a great leader? Yeah, there are. A lot of you are shaking your head yes, or nodding yes, and that's true. So he talked about it, Tony Robbins, in the video, talking about, you know, those three things. There's, you know, managers love processes and systems and stuff, and they just love it, you know. But there's other types. There's leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, a different ball game. So these are different roles, and sometimes we need to look at ourselves. We're all going through these trainings, but I think it's important for you to look at, you know, the differences between the two, and for you to say, yeah, this is really where I want to be. This is where I'm at. This is what I love, or this is what I might want to strive for. So I think this is a good comparison. The other one has a lot of stuff in it too, and I think it's good to look at. I'm not going to go through it today, but I did want to just, you know, again, hit on this one. So again, a leader, number two, aligns with people. And that means communicates goals, seeks commitment, builds teams, coalitions, and alliances. In the management side, they organizing and staffing. So they provide structure, they make job placements, they establish rules and procedures. So do you see the difference that we're talking about here? It's just different roles. It's the same as saying, you know, like I'm a salesperson and I attract to that type of thing. Some of you on this call would say, I never want to do sales in my life. Okay. It's not that one of the other things are better than the other. We're all needed in the different roles that we have. And it's the same with this leadership management. So I don't want you to think, oh, well, in order for me to be successful, I have to be a leader. That's the status. No, that's not true. We need great leaders and we need great managers. So the third one there, Joe, how about you read that number 3 for us, if you wouldn't mind, on both sides?
Yeah. So a leader motivates and inspires. That means they energize, they empower their employees and colleagues, and satisfies unmet needs. Where management is problem solving and controlling, and making sure things are going a certain way. So develop incentives, generate creative solutions, and take corrective action. Both of those are needed, and I would say that they're both required in leadership and management. But when you're talking about a leader is helping people see where it is that they want to go and help them get there and empower them to get there.
Yeah. So who's the leader of our company?
Ted.
He's a good example of a leader, right? Does he come down to your team meetings and help to motivate each of those team members? And does he do the Q12s with each of them? No. So you see the difference. I mean, Ted's role is important. Your role is very important, no matter where you're at in that position. So I think, hopefully the management training gave us lots of great ideas. Being able to work with your team, being able to understand their strengths, being able to do the Q12 questioning and know what they, know how to help. I mean, it's right there with them. And I love that. But we also need people who are, bigger picture thinkers, that are going to set those strategies and what the mission and culture and so forth. That is fantastic. We got to have that. So, just think for yourself. Again, we talk about, this coach's path that we have, and we also, just have the hero's path. The hero's path is latching on to that one thing. If you're a great manager and you love your teams, in order for you to be successful, do you have to become a leader in that definition? No. Be who you are. Clarify that and be who you are and follow that path. I think that's the most important part. Are you following the path that you're wanting to be on? Or are you following a path because you think that's the status quo, that's your way to success? Then I think you're kind of confused as to what that might mean. But that's corporate America, right? That's what corporate America does. They've trained us well over the years to think that way, and it's not that way. In our company, it's not. We want you to find that path for you. So that's really important. Well, thank you guys. Look, we're running out of time. Ted was thinking he might not be here today and we might want to cancel. And I said, no, let's not cancel. Let's carry on. And if you make it, you make some of it, which I'm glad he came in and got to talk about the one video that he was passionate about. But I appreciate everybody watching the video. I learned a lot. I think there was some amazing things. Now, again, learning is one thing. Taking action, Mariah, right? Taking action, doing, right? That's the next step, is doing. So take some of those things you learned and say, gosh, this really stuck with me, and I'm gonna work on that this week and in the coming months to see if I can be better at that. I think that's fantastic. Mariah, would you tell me the name of the book again that had to do with the lady that was the creative thing?
It's called Big Magic.
Big Magic.
And then the other one was 101 essays to change the way you think. They're
Okay.
both really, really good.
Good. So, one thing that, and we didn't have time to do it today. We'll probably somewhere in the future, but another one that was really good was spending at least 90 minutes a week working on the business, not in the business. Don't get confused with your daily work. This is working on the business. And I think that, those are important things too. So hopefully you spend some time this week as we talk about all of these pieces from this video of working on the business. So pick those things, make them work. Have a happy Friday. I wish it was Halloween today because we could see, Shane's the only one that's got a costume on, his Star Trek outfit, but the rest of you, oh, okay, Ashley Hosang does too. So have fun this coming week. Hopefully you get out to take your kids trick-or-treating, or you go on your own, whatever you're doing, and enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you guys all next week. Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Bye.